Hello and welcome to History at Night. Picture yourself walking through the streets of an ancient Roman city on a warm morning in the year 78 AD. The air is filled with the sounds of daily life, the chatter of merchants, the clip-clop of horses on stone pavement, and the distant rumble of cartwheels. The scent of fresh bread drifts from the bakeries, mixing with the earthy smell of wine and the sharp tang of garum, the fermented fish sauce that Romans loved. You pass elegant houses with colourful frescoed walls, bustling taverns where people gather to drink and gossip, and workshops where craftsmen hammer away at their trades. This is Pompeii, a thriving commercial city of nearly 20,000 souls, and it is about to become one of history's most perfectly preserved time capsules. But tonight, we will not speak of the mountain that looms in the distance or the tragedy that awaits. Instead, we will step into the sandals of ordinary Romans and discover what it was truly like to live in this remarkable city before the ash fell silent. We will explore their homes, their work, their pleasures, and their daily struggles. We will meet the baker who rises before dawn to feed his neighborhood, the wealthy merchant who dreams of political glory, and the enslaved household servant who tends to her master's garden. Before we begin our journey, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe. It's a simple and wonderful way to support the channel, and it means a great deal to me. I'm also always curious to know where in the world and at what time you're joining me tonight. So I'd really love to hear from you in the comments. And now settle in. Let the noise of the modern world fade away, and let us travel back to a time of marble columns, flowing togas, and the vibrant pulse of Roman life. The morning begins before the sun has painted the sky with its first golden rays. In a modest house on the Via dell'Abbondanza, one of Pompeii's main thoroughfares, Marcus Caesius Blandus awakens to the sound of his rooster crowing in the small courtery. This is not yard behind his back the gentle awakening of leisure, but the sharp call of duty that has governed his life for over 2 decades. Marcus is a pister, a baker, and his trade is one of the most essential in all of Roman society. Without men like him, the city would starve, and the delicate web of urban life would collapse. He rises from his simple wooden bed, his joints stiff from years of heavy labour. The room is small and sparsely furnished, containing only his bed, a wooden chest for his clothes, and a small oil lamp that flickers with a warm, steady flame. The walls are plain, painted a simple white, with a red border near the floor. This is not the house of a wealthy man, but it is respectable, and Marcus takes pride in both his trade and his modest prosperity. As he dresses in his tunic and sandals, Marcus can already hear the sounds of his household stirring. His wife, Livia, is lighting the fire in the kitchen, preparing the simple breakfast of bread, cheese, and watered wine that will sustain them through the morning. His 2 young apprentices, both freedmen who work for him in exchange for room, board, and training in the baker's art, are already moving about in the rooms above the shop, preparing for the day's labour. The bakery itself occupies the ground floor of Marcus's house, a common arrangement in Pompeii where homes and businesses are seamlessly integrated. The heart of his operation is the massive stone oven, built into the wall and heated by a wood fire that burns in a chamber beneath the baking floor. This oven, constructed of carefully fitted volcanic stones and sealed with clay, can reach temperatures that would make a modern baker envious. It is Marcus's most prized possession, inherited from his father and representing generations of accumulated skill and investment. Beside the oven stands the heavy stone mill, turned by a blindfolded donkey that walks in endless circles, grinding wheat into the fine flour that is the foundation of Roman bread. The donkey, like the oven, is essential to Marcus's livelihood. Without the steady, patient labour of this animal, the back-breaking work of grinding grain by hand would consume his entire day, leaving no time for the equally demanding tasks of mixing, kneading, and baking. Marcus begins his work while the city still sleeps. He measures out portions of flour with practiced efficiency, adding water, salt, and a small amount of sourdough starter that he has maintained for years. The starter, a living culture of wild yeasts and bacteria, is perhaps his most closely guarded secret. It gives his bread its distinctive flavor and texture, setting it apart from the offerings of his competitors. In the competitive world of Roman commerce, such advantages are jealously protected and passed down from father to son like precious heirlooms. The process of making bread in ancient Pompeii is both art and science, requiring strength, skill, and perfect timing. Marcus kneads the dough with powerful arms, working it until it reaches the perfect consistency, smooth and elastic to the touch. He shapes the loaves by hand, marking each with his personal stamp, a practice that serves both as advertisement and quality guarantee. In a world without brand names or packaging, a baker's reputation rests entirely on the consistent excellence of his product. As the first loaves go into the oven, the sky begins to lighten, and the city of Pompeii slowly awakens around him. The street outside his shop comes alive with the sounds of morning activity. Cart drivers shout to their oxen as they navigate the narrow streets, their wooden wheels clattering over the polygonal stones of the roadway. Water carriers balance heavy amphoras on their shoulders, making their rounds to the houses and shops that lack their own wells. Street vendors set up their stalls, calling out their wares in voices that carry through the morning air. The scent of Marcus's fresh bread begins to drift through the neighborhood, a signal that draws the first customers of the day. These are mostly household slaves and freedmen, sent by their masters to purchase the daily bread that forms the cornerstone of every Roman meal. They arrive with small bronze coins and woven baskets, exchanging pleasantries with Marcus as they conduct their business. This daily ritual of buying bread is more than mere commerce. It is one of the threads that weaves the community together, a moment of human connection in the busy fabric of urban life. By the time the sun has fully risen above the eastern hills, Marcus's bakery is filled with the warm, yeasty aroma of fresh bread and the steady stream of customers. He works alongside his apprentices, who have learned not only the technical skills of baking, but also the subtler arts of customer service and business management. In Roman society, the relationship between master and apprentice is one of mutual obligation. Marcus provides training, shelter, and eventual freedom, while his apprentices give him their labor and loyalty. It is a system that has worked for generations, ensuring that skills are passed down and that young men have a path to independence and respectability. The bread that emerges from Marcus's oven is not the soft white loaf that modern bakeries produce. Roman bread is dense and dark, made from coarsely ground wheat that includes much of the bran and germ. It is nutritious and filling, designed to provide the calories and sustenance needed for physical labor. The wealthy might enjoy finer, whiter bread made from more carefully sifted flour, but for most Pompeians, Marcus's sturdy loaves are a daily necessity and a source of genuine satisfaction. As the morning progresses, Marcus's attention turns to the business side of his operation. He must calculate how much flour to order from the grain merchants who bring their goods from the fertile fields of Sicily and Egypt. He must negotiate with the wood sellers who provide fuel for his oven, and he must manage the complex web of credit and payment that governs small-scale Roman commerce. Many of his customers buy on credit, paying their accounts weekly or monthly, and Marcus must keep careful track of these debts in his memory. For literacy, while more common in Pompeii than in many ancient cities, is still not universal among the working classes. The success of Marcus's bakery depends not only on his skill with dough and oven, but also on his understanding of his community and its needs. He knows which customers prefer their bread well baked and which like it softer. He knows which households are struggling financially and might need extended credit, and which are prosperous enough to pay for special orders. He understands the rhythms of the city, the way demand changes with the seasons, festivals, and the arrival of merchant ships in the harbour. But Marcus's world extends beyond the confines of his bakery. Like all Roman citizens, he has obligations to the broader community that shape his daily life. He belongs to a collegium, a professional association of bakers that serves both as trade guild and social club. The collegium meets regularly to discuss matters of common concern, to set standards for the trade, and to organize religious observances in honor of Vesta, the goddess of the hearth and the patron deity of bakers. These meetings are held in a modest building near the forum, where the members share food and wine while conducting their business. The collegium also serves as a form of insurance and mutual aid society. When a member falls ill or dies, the organization provides support for his family. When disputes arise between bakers or between bakers and their customers, the collegium mediates and seeks resolution. In a world without government welfare or corporate benefits, these voluntary associations fill a crucial role in providing security and community support. As a member of the working class, Marcus occupies a specific place in Pompeii's complex social hierarchy. He is neither wealthy nor poor, neither slave nor aristocrat. He is a free Roman citizen with a respected trade, able to support his family and contribute to his community. His status gives him certain rights and privileges, including the right to vote in local elections and the right to legal protection under Roman law. But it also comes with responsibilities, including the obligation to serve in the local militia if needed, and to contribute to public works and festivals, according to his means. The social structure of Pompeii is visible everywhere in the city, reflected in the architecture of homes, the quality of clothing, and the daily interactions between different classes of people. At the top of the hierarchy are the wealthy elite, the members of old patrician families and successful merchants who have bought their way into respectability. These are the men who serve ASD public magistrates, build monuments, and live in grand houses, decorated with elaborate frescoes and mosaics. Below them are the middle classes, people like Marcus, who have achieved modest prosperity through trade or skilled labor. They live in comfortable but not luxurious homes, can afford some personal luxuries, and play important roles in the economic life of the city. Their children might have opportunities for education and advancement that were denied to earlier generations. At the bottom of the free population are the urban poor, day labourers and small shopkeepers who live constantly on the edge of subsistence. They crowd into small rented rooms, work irregular jobs, and depend on the occasional generosity of wealthy patrons for survival. Many of them are former slaves who have been freed but lack the resources to establish themselves independently. And finally, there are the slaves themselves, perhaps 1/3 of Pompeii's population, who perform the manual labour that keeps the city functioning. Some are household servants who live in relative comfort with their masters, while others toil in workshops, brothels, and the dangerous environment of the docks. Their legal status is that of property, but the reality of their lives varies enormously, depending on their skills, their masters, and their circumstances. Marcus understands this hierarchy intimately, for it shapes every aspect of his daily interactions. When wealthy customers enter his bakery, he greets them with the deference their status demands, using the proper honorific titles and ensuring their orders receive priority attention. When slaves arrive to purchase bread for their masters' households, he treats them with professional courtesy, but maintains the social distance that convention requires. And when his fellow craftsmen stop by for conversation and a cup of wine, he relaxes into the easy camaraderie of equals who share similar struggles and aspirations. The afternoon brings a different rhythm to Marcus's work. The morning's bread has been sold, the ovens have cooled, and it is time to prepare for tomorrow's baking. This is when he turns his attention to the more complex aspects of his trade, the special orders and seasonal specialties that set his bakery apart from his competitors. During religious festivals, he might prepare honey cakes shaped like animals or human figures. For wealthy customers hosting dinner parties, he creates elaborate breads twisted into decorative shapes or flavoured with expensive imported spices. But the afternoon also brings time for the social aspects of Roman life, that are as important as work itself. Marcus steps out onto the street to chat with neighboring shopkeepers, sharing news and gossip while keeping an eye on potential customers. The Roman concept of otium, or leisure, does not mean idleness, but rather the cultivation of relationships and civic engagement that give life meaning beyond mere survival. Across the city, in a very different kind of dwelling, the day unfolds according to an entirely different pattern. On the slopes of the city's most fashionable district, the villa of the Pompeii spreads across several acres of carefully landscaped grounds. Here lives Lucius Caesius Bassus, a wealthy merchant whose ships carry goods throughout the Mediterranean and whose political ambitions reach toward the highest offices of the Roman state. Lucius awakens not to the crow of roosters, but to the gentle sound of a water fountain in his private garden. His bedroom is a masterpiece of Roman decorative art, its walls covered with frescoes depicting scenes from Greek mythology. The ceiling is painted to resemble a garden pavilion, with vines and flowers creating an illusion of outdoor space within the confines of the room. The floor is paved with intricate mosaics that tell stories of heroic deeds and divine interventions, each tiny stone carefully placed by master craftsmen whose skills command premium prices. The bed itself is a work of art, its wooden frame inlaid with ivory and precious metals, its mattress stuffed with the finest goose down and covered with silk sheets imported from the distant reaches of the empire. This is not merely furniture, but a statement of wealth and status, designed to impress visitors and affirm Lucius's position in society's upper ranks. As he rises, Lucius is attended by his personal slave, a young Greek named Alexios, who was captured during a raid on a pirate stronghold and sold in the slave market at Delos. Alexios is educated and cultured, able to read and write in both Latin and Greek, and his duties extend far beyond those of a simple body servant. He manages Lucius's correspondence, keeps track of his appointments, and serves as a trusted confidant in matters both personal and professional. The relationship between Lucius and Alexios illustrates the complex nature of slavery in Roman society. While Alexios is legally property, bought and paid for like a piece of furniture, the reality of their daily interaction is more nuanced. Lucius depends on Alexios's intelligence and discretion, and Alexios has learned to navigate the delicate balance between civility and subtle influence. Both men understand that Alexios's eventual freedom is likely either through manumission as a reward for faithful service or through the accumulation of savings that would allow him to purchase his liberty. Lucius's morning routine reflects the leisured pace of aristocratic life. After Alexios has helped him dress in a fine woolen toga bordered with purple stripes that indicate his senatorial rank, Lucius makes his way to the villa's private bath complex. Here, in a series of rooms heated by hypocaust systems that circulate warm air beneath the floors, he undergoes the elaborate bathing ritual that is central to Roman culture. The bath complex is a miniature version of the great public thermae that serve the general population, but its private nature allows Lucius to bathe in solitude or with carefully chosen companions. The cold room, the warm room, and the hot room each serve different purposes in the cleansing process, while skilled slaves attend to every need, providing oils and strigils for cleaning, towels for drying, and massage to ease the tensions of body and mind. As Lucius soaks in the warm water, he contemplates the day's business. His trading ventures span the Mediterranean, from the grain fields of Egypt to the silver mines of Spain, from the purple dyeworks of Tyre to the silk markets of Damascus. Each venture requires careful calculation of risks and rewards, detailed knowledge of market conditions, and the ability to work with partners and agents across vast distances and cultural differences. His wealth comes not from a single source, but from a diversified portfolio of investments that reflect the interconnected nature of the Roman economy. He owns ships that carry cargoes between distant ports, warehouses that store goods awaiting favorable market conditions, and workshops that produce luxury items for wealthy consumers throughout the empire. He has loaned money to other merchants at carefully calculated rates of interest, and he has invested in agricultural estates that produce wine and olive oil for both local consumption and export. But Lucius's ambitions extend beyond mere commercial success. Like many wealthy Romans, he sees business as a stepping stone to political power and social prestige. He has already served as aedile, responsible for maintaining the city's streets and public buildings, and he has donated generously to public works projects that bear his name and ensure his lasting fame. His ultimate goal is to serve as one of Pompeii's 2 chief magistrates, the Duumviri, a position that would crown his career and secure his family's place among the city's most distinguished citizens. The pursuit of political office in Roman society is expensive and competitive. Candidates are expected to sponsor public entertainments, fund construction projects, and demonstrate their worthiness through acts of civic generosity. Lucius has already commissioned a new fountain for one of the city's neighborhoods, and he is considering funding the restoration of a temple that has fallen into disrepair. These expenditures are investments in his political future, ways of building the popular support that electoral success requires. After his bath, Lucius makes his way to the Villa's Tablinum, a combination office and reception room where he conducts the day's business. The room is designed to impress, with painted walls that create the illusion of looking out onto elaborate architectural vistas, and a floor mosaic that depicts the triumph of Neptune over the forces of chaos. Here, he receives clients, reviews correspondence, and makes the decisions that guide his far-flung commercial empire. The first visitors of the day are members of his clientela, a group of free citizens who have entered into relationships of mutual obligation with him. In exchange for his protection and occasional financial assistance, they provide political support, business referrals, and social connections that enhance his influence and reputation. This patron-client system is one of the fundamental institutions of Roman society, creating networks of loyalty and obligation that extend throughout the social hierarchy. Among his clients today is Marcus Holconius, a freedman who operates a successful pottery workshop in the industrial district of the city. Marcus owes his initial freedom to Lucius's father and his continuing prosperity to loans and business connections provided by the family. In return, he votes as Lucius directs in local elections, speaks favourably of him in the workshops and taverns where public opinion is shaped, and provides high-quality pottery for the villa at favourable prices. Another client is Gaius Epidius Sabinus, a freeborn citizen of modest means who teaches rhetoric in one of the city's schools. Lucius has arranged for Gaius to tutor his teenage son in the arts of public speaking and literary composition, skills essential for a young man destined for political career. In exchange, Gaius provides intelligence about political developments, helps draft speeches and letters, and uses his contacts among the educated classes to build support for Lucius's ambitions. The morning's business also includes meetings with sea captains recently returned from trading voyages, their ships loaded with exotic goods and their heads full of information about market conditions in distant ports. These men are Lucius's eyes and ears throughout the Mediterranean world, bringing him news of political developments, economic opportunities, and potential threats to his commercial interests. One captain reports strong demand for Campanian wine in the markets of Alexandria, suggesting an opportunity to increase shipments of the vintage produced on Lucius's estates in the fertile hills outside the city. Another brings word of unrest in one of the Gallic provinces, which might disrupt the supply of certain luxury goods and drive up prices for merchants wise enough to stockpile inventory in advance. As the morning progresses, Lucius's attention turns to domestic affairs and the management of his household. The villa employs dozens of slaves whose specialized skills keep the complex operation running smoothly. There are gardeners who maintain the elaborate landscaping, cooks who prepare elaborate meals for family and guests, craftsmen who repair and maintain the buildings and furnishings, and guards who protect the property and its inhabitants. The management of such a large household requires careful attention to both human and economic factors. Lucius must ensure that his slaves are properly fed, housed, and motivated, while also maintaining the discipline and hierarchy that Roman society expects. He must balance the need for efficiency with the recognition that his slaves are human beings, whose loyalty and cooperation are essential to his success. The villa's gardens are perhaps its most impressive feature, a carefully designed landscape that demonstrates both aesthetic sophistication and practical knowledge of horticulture. Formal walkways lined with statuary connect different areas of the grounds, while fountains and pools provide both visual beauty and the soothing sound of moving water. The gardens include practical elements as well, with vegetable plots that supply the household kitchen, herb gardens that provide seasonings and medicines, and fruit trees that offer both sustenance and shade. The management of these gardens requires the expertise of skilled slave gardeners who understand the delicate balance of soil, water, and seasonal rhythms that Mediterranean horticulture demands. The head gardener, an elderly man named Titus who was born on the estate and has spent his entire life perfecting his craft, oversees a team of younger workers who tend to the daily tasks of watering, pruning, and harvesting. The gardens serve multiple purposes beyond mere decoration. They provide a tranquil retreat where Lucius can escape the pressures of business and politics, walking the shaded paths while contemplating important decisions or entertaining distinguished guests. The carefully arranged plantings create a series of outdoor rooms, each with its own character and purpose. There is a formal area near the main house where geometric patterns of boxwood hedges frame beds of roses and lilies, their blooms filling the air with fragrance during the growing season. Beyond the formal gardens lie more practical areas where vegetables and herbs grow in neat rows. Here, lettuce and cabbage provide fresh greens for the household table, while onions, garlic, and various herbs add flavour to the elaborate dishes that emerge from the villa's kitchen. Fruit trees line the garden's perimeter, their branches heavy with figs, pomegranates, and citrus fruits that represent both luxury and practical sustenance. The villa's kitchen is itself a marvel of Roman domestic architecture, designed to serve the elaborate entertaining that Lucius's social position requires. The space is large and well ventilated, with high ceilings that allow smoke from the cooking fires to escape through carefully positioned openings. Multiple hearths and ovens allow the kitchen slaves to prepare several dishes simultaneously, while marble countertops provide clean surfaces for food preparation. The kitchen staff is led by Gaius Junius Thalamus, a freedman whose culinary skills have earned him a reputation throughout Pompeii's aristocratic circles. Thalamus began his career as a slave in the household of a Roman senator, where he learned not only the technical aspects of cooking, but also the subtle arts of menu planning and presentation that distinguish truly great cuisine from mere sustenance. His freedom was the reward for years of exceptional service, and his current position with Lucius represents the pinnacle of his professional achievement. Under Thalamus's direction, the kitchen produces meals that are works of art as much as nourishment. Roman dining among the wealthy classes is an elaborate ritual that demonstrates cultural sophistication, social status, and personal refinement. A typical dinner party might feature 9 courses, each composed of multiple dishes that showcase different ingredients, cooking techniques, and flavor combinations. The meal begins with the gustatio, or appetizer course, featuring delicacies designed to stimulate the appetite and impress the guests. These might include eggs prepared in various ways, olives stuffed with nuts or fish paste, and small portions of exotic foods like peacock or dormice. The presentation is as important as the taste, with dishes arranged in patterns that please the eye and demonstrate the host's attention to aesthetic detail. The main course, the prima mensa, showcases the kitchen's most impressive creations. Whole roasted animals might be presented with elaborate garnishes and sauces that transform simple ingredients into culinary masterpieces. Fish from the Bay of Naples arrives daily at the villa's service entrance, their silvery bodies still gleaming with seawater. These might be prepared with complex sauces made from fermented fish products, wine reductions, and exotic spices imported from the far reaches of the empire. The meal concludes with the secunda mensa, a dessert course featuring fresh and preserved fruits, honey cakes, and sweet wines from the villa's own vineyards. The presentation of these final dishes often includes theatrical elements, with slaves carrying in elaborate constructions of pastry and fruit that collapse to reveal hidden surprises within. But the villa's kitchen serves more than just formal entertainment. It also provides daily meals for the household's dozens of residents, from family members to the most junior slaves. This requires careful planning and resource management, as different social ranks receive different qualities and quantities of food according to well-established hierarchies. The family's daily meals are simpler than banquet fare, but still reflect their elevated status. Breakfast might consist of bread with honey, cheese, and fresh fruit, accompanied by wine mixed with water, in proportions that vary according to the drinker's age and social position. The main meal of the day, taken in the late afternoon, features multiple courses, but on a more modest scale than formal entertaining requires. The slave's diet is more basic, but still adequate by the standards of the time. They receive daily rations of bread, olive oil, and wine, supplemented by vegetables from the garden, occasional meat or fish, and seasonal fruits. The quality of slave food varies according to their position in the household hierarchy, with skilled workers and personal servants receiving better provisions than those assigned to manual labor. The preparation and service of food requires a complex choreography of human activity that reflects the villa's social structure. Senior slaves oversee junior ones, freedmen manage slaves, and family members direct the entire operation according to their needs and desires. The smooth functioning of this system depends on everyone understanding their role and performing it with competence and dedication. Water is another crucial element in the villa's daily operations, and Lucius has invested heavily in ensuring an adequate supply. The house is connected to Pompeii's public aqueduct system, which brings fresh water from springs in the nearby mountains through a network of underground channels and raised arches. This water flows into a large cistern beneath the villa, from which it is distributed throughout the building by lead pipes and bronze fittings. The villa's bathing complex requires enormous quantities of water, heated by furnaces that burn constantly during the cool months and operated by slaves who understand the complex systems of valves, drains, and heating chambers. The gardens also demand regular irrigation, particularly during the dry summer months, when the Mediterranean climate provides little natural rainfall. But water is more than just a practical necessity in Roman culture. It is also a symbol of civilization, luxury, and divine favor. The villa's fountains and pools serve decorative purposes, their gentle sounds creating an atmosphere of tranquility and refinement. The sight and sound of flowing water in the Mediterranean climate provides both physical and psychological relief from the heat and dust of daily life. As the afternoon heat builds, activity in the villa shifts to the cooler, shaded areas of the complex. This is when Lucius often receives social visits from his peers, fellow members of Pompeii's elite, who share his interests in politics, business, and culture. These informal gatherings are as important as formal business meetings, for they provide opportunities to exchange information, negotiate agreements, and build the personal relationships that underlie all Roman society. The conversations that take place in the villa's elegant reception rooms cover a wide range of topics reflecting the cosmopolitan interests of educated Romans. Politics is always a central concern, as local elections approach and various candidates maneuver for support. Business opportunities and challenges are discussed, from fluctuations in grain prices to the reliability of shipping routes affected by pirate activity or political instability. Cultural topics also feature prominently in these discussions. Recent theatrical performances at the city's amphitheatre provide material for critical analysis and social commentary. New books arriving from Rome or Athens generate debates about literary merit and philosophical implications. Architectural projects, both public and private, are examined for their aesthetic success and social significance. These social interactions serve multiple purposes in Roman society. They reinforce class solidarity among the elite, creating bonds of shared interest and mutual understanding that transcend individual competition. They provide channels for the informal exchange of information that supplements official communication networks. And they offer opportunities for the display of cultural sophistication and intellectual refinement that distinguish the educated classes from their social inferiors. The villa's library reflects Lucius's participation in this culture of learning and intellectual discourse. The room contains hundreds of papyrus rolls stored in wooden cases and arranged according to subject matter and author. Greek texts predominate, as educated Romans consider knowledge of Greek language and literature essential to true cultivation. Homer's epics occupy places of honor, along with the works of the great tragedians and philosophers whose ideas continue to shape Roman thought. Latin literature is also well represented, from the historical works of Livy and Tacitus to the poetry of Virgil and Ovid. More practical texts cover subjects like agriculture, architecture, and military strategy, reflecting the Roman emphasis on useful knowledge alongside pure learning. The collection also includes contemporary works, scrolls that arrive regularly from Rome's publishing houses and provide access to the latest developments in literature, philosophy, and science. Reading in the ancient world is often a social activity, with educated slaves serving as readers for their masters or small groups gathering to hear new works presented aloud. The villa's library is designed to accommodate such gatherings, with comfortable seating arrangements and good natural lighting from large windows that face north to avoid the harsh, direct sunlight that could damage the precious papyrus scrolls. As evening approaches, the villa's atmosphere becomes more relaxed and intimate. The heat of the day begins to dissipate, and cooling breezes from the Bay of Naples bring relief and the scent of salt water. This is when families gather for their main meal of the day, a time for conversation, planning, and the strengthening of domestic bonds that provide stability in an uncertain world. Lucius's family includes his wife, Claudia Marcella, a woman of distinguished lineage whose marriage brought both social connections and a substantial dowry to the union. Claudia manages the domestic aspects of the household with the same attention to detail that Lucius applies to his business ventures. She oversees the female slaves who handle textile production, food preparation, and childcare, ensuring that the villa operates smoothly and maintains the standards of elegance and efficiency that their social position requires. Their children represent the future of the family line and receive careful attention to their education and moral development. The eldest son, Marcus, is now approaching manhood and beginning to participate in the political and social activities that will define his adult life. He accompanies his father to public events, observes business negotiations, and receives instruction in rhetoric and law from private tutors who prepare him for eventual leadership roles. The family's daughter, Livia, receives a different but equally important education, focused on the domestic skills and cultural accomplishments that will make her an attractive marriage prospect and an household effective manager. She learns to read and write, studies music and poetry, and develops the social graces that will allow the elite her to navigate the complex world Roman society. The education of Roman children among the wealthy is both classes and expensive intensive, requiring the services of skilled tutors who command high fees for their expertise. These teachers are often Greek slaves or freedmen whose cultural background provides access to the literary and philosophical traditions that Romans admire but did not originate. The relationship between tutor and student is intimate and influential, often lasting well beyond the formal period of instruction. The evening meal in Lucius's villa is served in the triclinium, the formal dining room, whose name derives from the 3 couches arranged around a central table. This arrangement, borrowed from Greek culture but thoroughly adapted to Roman tastes, reflects both the social hierarchy of the diners and the theatrical nature of elite Roman dining. The couches are arranged in a specific pattern, with the most honoured positions reserved for the host and his most distinguished guests, while lesser individuals occupy places that correspond to their social rank. The room itself is a masterpiece of decorative art, its walls painted with elaborate scenes that transport diners to mythical landscapes and divine realms. One wall depicts the wedding of Peleus and Thetis, with gods and mortals mingling in harmonious celebration. Another shows the gardens of the Hesperides, where golden apples grow on trees, tended by nymphs, whose beauty rivals that of the goddesses themselves. The ceiling is painted to resemble a canopy of silk stretched between marble columns, creating the illusion of dining in an open pavilion despite the enclosed nature of the room. The floor is paved with a mosaic of extraordinary complexity and beauty, its millions of tiny coloured stones forming intricate patterns that seem to shift and change as the flickering light of oil lamps moves across their surface. At the centre of the composition, Neptune rides his chariot across storm-tossed seas, his trident raised in triumph over the forces of chaos and destruction. Around the central scene, elaborate borders contain smaller vignettes depicting sea creatures, mythological figures, and geometric patterns that demonstrate the mathematical precision underlying all great Roman art. As the family reclines on silk-covered couches, attended by slaves whose movements are choreographed with balletic precision, the evening's conversation ranges across the full spectrum of their interests and concerns. Claudia reports on the progress of various domestic projects, from the weaving of new textiles of young the villa's workshops to the training slaves in the skills they will need for specialized service. She also shares news gathered from her network of female friends and relatives, information that often proves as valuable as anything obtained through Lucius's business connections. The children contribute their own perspectives to these family discussions, their questions and observations, providing insights that adults might miss. Young Marcus describes his observations of political debates in the forum, analysing the rhetorical techniques of different speakers and evaluating their effectiveness in swaying public opinion. Livia shares her impressions of recent social events, her feminine perspective revealing subtle undercurrents and social dynamics that male observers might overlook. These family conversations serve multiple purposes beyond mere entertainment. They provide opportunities for parents to assess their children's intellectual and moral development, offering guidance and correction when necessary. They allow family members to coordinate their activities and present a unified face to the outside world. And they create the bonds of affection and mutual understanding that sustain families through the inevitable challenges and crises that life brings. The meal itself unfolds according to elaborate rituals that have been refined over generations of aristocratic dining. Each course arrives at precisely the right moment, neither too early nor too late, carried by slaves whose training ensures that every detail of presentation meets the exacting standards their masters demand. The progression of dishes follows ancient traditions that balance flavours, textures, and visual appeal in ways designed to please all the senses. Wine plays a central role in these dinner rituals, not merely as an intoxicant, but as a symbol of civilization and refinement. The villa's cellars contain amphorae from the finest vineyards of Italy, Greece, and Spain, each vintage carefully selected for its quality and appropriateness to different occasions. The wine is mixed with water in proportions that vary according to the drinker's age, social status, and the formality of the occasion, creating a beverage that provides mild euphoria without the loss of dignity that excessive drinking would bring. The conversation that accompanies these meals reflects the breadth of interests that educated Romans cultivate as essential to their identity. Literature provides a common language for discussing moral questions and social issues, with characters from epic poetry serving as exemplars of virtue or cautionary tales of vice. Philosophy offers frameworks for understanding the nature of justice, duty, and the good life, while history provides lessons about the consequences of various political and military strategies. But these intellectual pursuits are always grounded in practical concerns about family welfare, business success, and civic responsibility. Abstract philosophical discussions inevitably return to concrete questions about how to behave in specific situations, how to balance competing obligations, and how to navigate the complex social hierarchies that govern Roman life. The integration of theoretical knowledge with practical wisdom is perhaps the most distinctive characteristic of Roman elite culture. As the evening progresses and the meal reaches its conclusion, the family's attention turns to planning for the following day's activities. Lucius reviews his appointments with clients and business associates, considering how to balance their competing demands on his time and attention. Claudia discusses household management issues that require decisions about resource allocation and personnel assignments. The children report on their educational progress and receive guidance about their upcoming obligations and opportunities. These planning sessions reveal the extraordinary complexity of managing. Every decision must be an elite Roman household, with its dozen side not only for its immediate practical consequences, but also for its impact of inhabitants and multiple economic, social, and political functions on the family's reputation, relationships, and long-term interests. The apparent leisure of aristocratic life conceals a constant process of calculation and strategic thinking that rivals any modern business operation in its sophistication and intensity. The villa's evening activities extend beyond the family dining room to encompass the entire household community. In the slaves' quarters, different but equally important social rituals unfold as the day's work concludes and evening recreation begins. Here too, hierarchies determine seating arrangements and speaking privileges, but the atmosphere is more relaxed and informal than the rigid protocols that govern interactions between masters and servants. The slave community includes individuals from across the Mediterranean world, their diverse backgrounds creating a cosmopolitan mixture of languages, customs, and perspectives. Greek slaves, prized for their education and cultural sophistication, often serve as tutors, secretaries, and personal attendants to family members. Egyptian slaves bring knowledge of mathematics, medicine, and engineering that proves valuable in managing the villa's complex mechanical systems. Celtic and Germanic slaves provide physical strength and endurance for agricultural and construction work. Despite their legal status as property, these individuals form genuine communities with their own internal structures of leadership, friendship, and mutual support. Marriages between slaves, while not legally recognized, are often acknowledged and respected by both the slave community and their masters. Children born to slave parents grow up in the villa's extended family network, receiving informal education and training that prepares them for specialized roles in the household economy. The evening hours provide opportunities for slaves to pursue their own interests and maintain their cultural traditions within the constraints of their circumstances. Music and storytelling preserve connections to distant homelands, while shared meals and conversations create bonds that transcend the artificial divisions imposed by their servile status. Some slaves use these evening hours for education, learning to read and write, or developing technical skills that might eventually earn them freedom and independent livelihoods. The relationship between masters and slaves in elite Roman households is complex and multifaceted, involving elements of exploitation, paternalism, and genuine affection. While slaves remain legally powerless and economically dependent, their daily interactions with family members often develop into relationships of trust and mutual respect. Skilled slaves may exercise considerable influence over household decisions, and longtime servants often become informal family members, whose opinions carry significant weight. This complexity reflects broader tensions within Roman society between ideals of freedom and dignity on one hand, and the practical necessities of maintaining a labor-intensive economy on the other. The institution of slavery allows elite families like Lucius's to enjoy lives of luxury and leisure. But it also creates moral and practical dilemmas that thoughtful Romans cannot entirely ignore or resolve. As night falls over Pompeii, the villa's oil lamps are lit throughout the complex, their warm golden light creating islands of illumination in the Mediterranean darkness. The transition from day to night brings a different quality to the household's activities, more intimate and contemplative than the bustling energy of daytime. This is when family members pursue individual interests and hobbies that reveal their personal characters beneath their public roles. Lucius might retire to his study to read the latest correspondence from business associates in distant cities, analysing market reports and political developments that could affect his commercial ventures. The letters, written on papyrus in the careful script of professional secretaries, bring news from across the empire and require careful interpretation and strategic response. Some report successful completion of trading voyages, their cargoes sold at profitable prices in foreign markets. Others describe political upheavals or natural disasters that might disrupt established trade routes and create new opportunities for flexible and well-informed merchants. Claudia might spend her evening hours supervising the female slaves who work at their looms in the villa's textile workshop, producing the fine fabrics that clothe the family and serve as gifts for friends and political allies. The rhythmic sound of weaving creates a peaceful backdrop for conversation and planning, as the women discuss everything from household management to social gossip, while their skilled hands transform raw wool and linen into beautiful finished products. The children's evening activities reflect their different stages of development and the expectations that Roman society places on young people of their class. Marcus might practice declamation exercises, preparing speeches on historical or mythological themes that will develop his rhetorical skills and prepare him for the public speaking that political success requires. Livia might work on her musical skills, playing the lyre or singing songs that demonstrate the cultural accomplishments expected Roman women. These of well-educated individual pursuits serve important functions beyond mere entertainment or skill development. They provide opportunities for personal reflection and self-cultivation that balance the social demands of Roman elite life. They create spaces for creativity and individual expression within the highly structured framework of family and civic obligations. And they develop the internal resources of character and intellect that enable individuals to meet the challenges and opportunities that their positions in society will inevitably bring. The villa's library becomes a particularly important space during these evening hours, as family members and educated slaves gather to read, discuss, and copy texts that preserve and transmit the cultural heritage of the classical world. The act of reading in the ancient world is often collaborative, with one person reading aloud while others listen and comment, creating a shared intellectual experience that strengthens social bonds while advancing individual learning. The books themselves represent enormous investments of time, skill, and resources. Each scroll must be hand-copied by skilled scribes whose careful work preserves the exact words of ancient authors, while making them accessible to new generations of readers. The papyrus on which they are written comes from Egypt at considerable expense, while the inks and writing instruments require specialized knowledge to prepare and use effectively. The content of these books reflects the full range of human knowledge and experience as understood by the ancient world. Epic poetry preserves the heroic traditions that inspire moral behavior and political action. Historical works provide lessons about the rise and fall of nations and the consequences of different leadership styles. Philosophical treatises explore fundamental questions about the nature of justice, truth, and human happiness. Technical manuals offer practical guidance about agriculture, architecture, medicine, and other specialized fields of knowledge. But perhaps most importantly, these books serve as bridges connecting the present generation with the accumulated wisdom of the past. Through reading and discussion, Romans like Lucius and his family participate in an ongoing conversation that stretches back centuries and will continue long after they themselves have passed from the scene. This sense of continuity and participation in something larger than individual experience provides meaning and purpose that transcends the immediate concerns of daily life. As the night deepens and the household prepares for sleep, the villa's various communities begin their own evening rituals of preparation and rest. Family members retire to their private chambers, attended by personal slaves who help them undress and prepare for the night's repose. The elaborate clothing of the day is carefully stored away, replaced by simple sleeping garments that provide comfort during the warm Mediterranean nights. The master bedroom becomes a private sanctuary where husband and wife can speak freely about matters too sensitive for public discussion. Here they review the day's events, plan future strategies, and maintain the intimate bonds that sustain their marriage through the inevitable stresses of public life. Their conversations might touch on everything from children's education to political alliances, from business investments to social obligations, always with an awareness that their decisions affect not only themselves, but the entire extended household community that depends on their leadership. In the children's quarters, different preparations unfold as young people process the day's experiences and prepare mentally for tomorrow's challenges. Tutors might review lessons with their charges, ensuring that important concepts are properly understood and memorized. Nurses and attendants help younger children with the practical tasks of washing and preparing for bed, while also providing the emotional support and guidance that growing minds need to develop properly. The slave quarters present their own patterns of evening activity as individuals and families within the slave community maintain their own relationships and traditions despite the constraints of their legal status. Couples share private moments together. Parents tend to their children's needs, and individuals pursue personal interests and friendships that provide meaning and satisfaction within their circumstances. Throughout the villa, the gradual transition from activity to rest reflects the natural rhythms that govern human life in all times and places. The oil lamps are extinguished one by one, their flames disappearing into darkness as sleep claims the villa's inhabitants. The sounds of conversation and movement give way to the gentle noises of night, the whisper of wind through the garden trees, the distant murmur of the sea, and the occasional call of night birds whose songs provide a peaceful soundtrack to dreams. But even as the villa sleeps, the larger city of Pompeii continues its own nocturnal activities. Night watchmen patrol the streets, their torches creating moving points of light in the darkness as they guard against fire, dist theft, and civil disturbance. Tavern keepers serve late, whose customers gather to drink, gamble, and share the news and gossip that keeps communities connected. Bakers like Marcus begin their pre-dawn preparations, knowing that the city will wake hungry and expecting fresh bread to sustain another day of commerce, politics, and social interaction. The rhythm of urban life never completely stops, even during the quiet hours of night. Somewhere in the city, a woman goes into labor and brings new life into the world. Somewhere else, an old man breathes his last and passes from the community of the living. Ships arrive in the harbor with cargoes from distant lands, while others depart carrying local products to markets across the Mediterranean. The eternal cycle of human activity continues, connecting Pompeii to the broader currents of empire and civilization that flow across the ancient world. In the wealthy districts where villas like Lucius's create islands of luxury and refinement, the night brings a temporary pause in the endless round of social and economic competition that defines elite Roman life. But even in sleep, these powerful families remain connected to the broader networks of obligation and opportunity that will resume with tomorrow's dawn. Dreams might bring visions of political triumph or commercial success, while Theus mind processes unconscious the complex information and relationships that conscious thought must navigate during waking hours. The physical beauty of these sleeping villas, with their moonlit gardens and elegant architecture, represents more than mere aesthetic achievement. It embodies the Roman ideal of civilization itself, the belief that human beings can create order, beauty, and meaning through intelligence, discipline, and cooperative effort. the gardens where fountains play in the darkness, the libraries where scrolls preserve ancient wisdom, and the workshops where skilled hands create objects of beauty and utility, all testify to humanity's capacity to transcend the limitations of nature and mortality through art, knowledge, and social organization. Yet beneath this serene surface of aristocratic comfort, a different story unfolds in the crowded quarters, where most of Pompeii's citizens spend their nights. In the narrow streets that wind between tall apartment buildings, the insulae that house the city's working population, the evening brings its own rituals and challenges. Here, in rooms barely large enough for a family, the realities of urban life reveal themselves with stark clarity. Gaius Trebius Valens lives with his wife and 3 children in 2 small rooms on the 2nd floor of a 4-story insula near the city's eastern gate. Gaius works as a fuller, one of the essential craftsmen who clean and process the woolen cloth that forms the backbone of Pompeii's textile industry. His trade is both vital and unpleasant, requiring him to spend his days working with human urine, which serves as the primary cleaning agent for removing grease and dirt from newly woven fabrics. The fuller's shop where Gaius labours is a testament to Roman ingenuity and pragmatism. Large stone basins lined with lead hold the various solutions needed for different stages of the cleaning process. Fresh urine, collected from public latrines and private households, is stored in ceramic vessels until it develops the proper concentration of ammonia needed for effective cleaning. The smell is overwhelming, a sharp, acrid odour that penetrates clothing and skin, marking fullers as surely as any brand could identify their profession. The work itself is physically demanding, requiring Gaius and his fellow workers to tread the wet cloth with their bare feet for hours at a time, pressing and kneading the fabric until it achieves the proper texture and cleanliness. Their legs disappear up to the knees in the churning mixture of urine and water, while their hands guide the cloth through its various stages of treatment. The constant moisture and chemical exposure takes its toll on their bodies, leaving skin cracked and discoloured, joints stiff and painful from the repetitive motions. Yet despite the unpleasant nature of his work, Gaius takes pride in his skill and the essential service he provides to the community. The finished cloth that emerges from his shop is transformed, its natural oils and impurities removed, its fibres cleaned and prepared for dyeing or immediate use. Wealthy customers bring their finest garments to be cleaned and refreshed, trusting his expertise to preserve the delicate fabrics that cost more than most workers earn in a year. The Fullers Guild, to which Gaius belongs, provides both professional support and social identity. Like Marcus the baker, Gaius participates in regular meetings where craftsmen discuss trade issues, set standards for quality and pricing, and organize religious observances honoring Minerva, the goddess of crafts and skilled labor. These gatherings serve as a form of mutual insurance, ensuring that members receive support during illness or economic hardship, and that their families are cared for if tragedy strikes. But the Guild also provides something equally important: dignity and recognition in a society that often overlooks the contributions of manual labourers. When the fullers process through the streets during religious festivals, wearing their best clothes and carrying banners that proclaim their trade, they assert their place in the urban community and demand the respect that their essential work deserves. Gaius's wife, Claudia, supplements the family income through her own labour, taking in spinning and weaving work from households that lack sufficient female slaves to meet their textile needs. Her days are spent at the loom, transforming raw wool into the basic fabrics that clothe Pompeii's middle and lower classes. The work requires skill and patience, as different types of cloth demand varying techniques of preparation, spinning, and weaving. The couple's modest apartment reflects both the constraints and possibilities of working-class life in ancient Pompeii. The main room serves multiple functions throughout the day, transforming from workshop to dining area to social space as family activities shift with the hours. Claudia's loom occupies one corner, its wooden frame holding the warp threads in perfect tension while she works the weft threads through them in patterns that create both strength and beauty. Simple wooden furniture serves the family's basic needs, without the elaborate decoration that marks upper-class homes. A sturdy table provides workspace for various activities, while wooden chests store clothing, tools, and the few personal possessions that represent the family's accumulated wealth. The walls are painted in simple colours, perhaps a cheerful yellow or red, with basic decorative borders that add warmth and personality to the small space without the expensive materials and skilled artistry that wealthy homes display. The family's evening meal reflects both their limited resources and their cultural aspirations. The basic elements remain the same as those enjoyed by the wealthy: bread, wine, olive oil, and whatever additional foods their budget allows. But the quality and quantity differ markedly from the elaborate feasts that grace aristocratic tables. Their bread is coarser, made from less refined flour, while their wine is of ordinary quality, often mixed with larger proportions of water to make it last longer. Vegetables from the small market gardens that surround the city provide variety and nutrition when seasonal abundance makes them affordable. Onions, cabbage, beans, and lentils form the backbone of many meals, supplemented by small amounts of cheese, eggs, or preserved fish when special occasions or good fortune allow such luxuries. Fresh meat is rare, reserved for festivals or celebrations, though the family might occasionally enjoy sausages or other processed meat products that make expensive ingredients stretch further. Despite these limitations, Claudia takes pride in her cooking skills and her ability to create satisfying meals from simple ingredients. The preparation of food becomes an art form in itself as she combines available ingredients in ways that maximize both nutrition and flavor. A simple stew of beans and vegetables, seasoned with herbs from the small pots she maintains on the apartment's tiny balcony, can provide both physical sustenance and genuine pleasure when prepared with skill and care. The children's experiences in this working-class household differ dramatically from those of their wealthy counterparts across the city. While young Marcus Lucius receives instruction from expensive private tutors, Gaius's children attend the local school, where a single teacher manages dozens of students in a single room. The teacher, often a freedman himself, provides basic instruction in reading, writing, and arithmetic, skills that will serve the children well if they can master them, but which are far from guaranteed in the crowded, noisy environment of the public school. The eldest child, a boy of 12 named Lucius, shows promise in his studies and dreams of perhaps advancing beyond his father's trade. His quick mind grasps mathematical concepts easily, and his memory retains the poetry and historical stories that form part of the basic Roman curriculum. But his future depends as much on family circumstances and economic opportunities as on his natural abilities. If business prospers and the family can afford to continue his education, he might eventually become a clerk, a teacher, or even a minor government official. But if economic pressures mount, he may find himself apprenticed to his father's trade or some other manual occupation before his education is complete. The family's daughter, 8-year-old Claudia, receives less formal education, but learns the domestic skills that will define her adult role. She helps her mother with spinning and weaving, gradually developing the hand-eye coordination and technical knowledge that these crafts require. She also learns cooking, household management, and the social skills needed to navigate the complex relationships that govern women's lives in Roman society. But perhaps most importantly, she absorbs the unspoken lessons about dignity, resilience, and mutual support that enable working-class families to survive and occasionally prosper despite their limited resources. She watches her mother stretch meager ingredients into satisfying meals, transform raw wool into beautiful cloth, and maintain the family's respectability through careful attention to cleanliness, courtesy, and proper behavior. These skills, while less celebrated than the rhetorical abilities taught to wealthy children, are equally essential to successful adult life. The apartment's second room serves as the family's sleeping quarters, its space carefully organized to accommodate 4 people in an area that would serve as a large closet in a wealthy home. Simple straw mattresses laid on wooden frames provide sleeping surfaces, while woolen blankets offer warmth during the cooler months. Personal belongings are stored in wooden chests or hung from pegs driven into the walls, every inch of space utilized with the efficiency that necessity demands. Privacy is a luxury that working-class families can rarely afford, and the intimate quarters require family members to develop tolerance, consideration, and cooperative habits that wealthy households can purchase through spatial separation. Children learn early to moderate their voices, control their movements, and respect others' needs for rest and quiet. Parents must balance their authority with the recognition that harsh discipline could make the small space unbearable for everyone. The building itself houses dozens of families in similar circumstances, creating a vertical community where neighbors share walls, stairways, and many of the challenges of urban life. The ground floor typically contains shops and workshops, their commercial activities providing employment opportunities and convenient access to goods and services. Higher floors are reserved for residential use, with the most desirable apartments on the second floor, where residents enjoy natural light and relatively easy access while avoiding both street noise and the climb upper too. The in-level Sula's design reflects the practical necessities of housing large numbers of people in limited space, while urban providing basic amenities for civilized life. A central courtyard allows light and air to penetrate the building's interior, while also providing space for communal activities like washing clothes or children's play. Shared latrines serve multiple families, their waste carried away by the city's sophisticated sewage system that channels refuse into the sea beyond the harbour. Water access varies by building and economic level, with some insulae connected directly to the public aqueduct system, while others rely on public fountains located at street corners throughout the city. Families like Gaius's might have a single tap providing water to their floor, requiring them to carry it in ceramic vessels to their individual apartments. The daily task of water collection becomes another opportunity for social interaction, as neighbours meet at fountains and building taps to exchange news, gossip, and mutual support. The sounds of the insula create a constant backdrop of human activity that reflects the intensity of urban life. Conversations drift through thin walls, children's voices echo in the courtyard, and the various activities of daily life blend into a symphony of community existence. Craftsmen hammer at their trades in ground floor workshops, while vendors in the street below call out their wares to potential customers. The grinding of mills, the lowing of animals, and the creak of cartwheels add their voices to the urban chorus these sounds also include. But the more intimate expressions of human experience, laughter and tears, arguments and reconciliations, celebrations and mourning, births and deaths, marriages and separations, all the major events of life unfold in close proximity to neighbours who become witnesses to each other's joys and sorrows. This intimacy creates bonds of mutual support and understanding that help individuals and families cope with the stresses and uncertainties of urban existence. As evening settles over the insula, the day's work gives way to the social activities that strengthen community bonds and provide entertainment after long hours of labour. In the courtyard, children play games that require little equipment but much imagination, their voices creating a cheerful counterpoint to adult conversations. Women gather to share the tasks of food preparation and textile work, their hands busy while their minds engage with the social networks that provide both practical support and emotional sustenance. Men often congregate in nearby taverns, small establishments that serve simple food and local wine while providing venues for political discussion, business negotiation, and social bonding. These taverns, scattered throughout Pompeii's neighborhoods, serve functions similar to modern community centers, offering spaces where working-class citizens can participate in the broader civic life of their city. Here, election campaigns are discussed and debated, trade issues are analyzed, and the personalities and policies of local leaders are subjected to detailed scrutiny. The tavern's atmosphere is markedly different from the refined dining that characterizes elite entertainment. The furniture is simple and sturdy, designed for heavy use rather than aesthetic display. The walls might be decorated with simple paintings or graffiti left by customers, creating a record of popular opinion and sentiment that reveals the thoughts and concerns of ordinary citizens. The food served is basic but substantial, designed to satisfy hunger and complement the wine that provides both calories and social lubrication. Wine plays a central role in these evening gatherings, but its consumption patterns differ from those observed in wealthy households. Working-class Romans drink wine that is rougher and less refined than the vintage selections available to the wealthy, often mixed with larger proportions of water to make it last longer and reduce its intoxicating effects. The goal is not the sophisticated appreciation of flavor and quality that marks aristocratic drinking, but rather the social bonding and relaxation that alcohol facilitates after hard physical labor. The conversations that unfold in these taverns provide insights into the concerns and aspirations of Pompeii's working population. Political discussions focus on practical issues that affect daily life. The quality of public services, the fairness of tax collection, the competence of local magistrates, and the impact of imperial policies on local economic conditions. Citizens debate the merits of different candidates for local office, analyzing their promises and track records with the practical wisdom of people whose lives are directly affected by government decisions. Economic topics dominate many discussions, as craftsmen and traders share information about market conditions, employment opportunities, and the availability of raw materials needed for their various trades. News from other parts of the empire affects local conditions in ways that require careful analysis and strategic response. A good harvest in Egypt might lower grain prices and reduce living costs, while political instability in Gaul could disrupt trade routes and affect the availability of certain goods. But these conversations also reveal the social tensions and cultural conflicts that exist within Roman society. Working-class citizens often express resentment toward the wealthy elite, whose political influence and economic power shape their lives in ways they cannot control. They critique the expensive public entertainments and building projects that elite politicians sponsor, arguing that resources might be better spent on practical improvements to infrastructure and public services. Religious topics also feature prominently in tavern discussions, as ordinary citizens grapple with questions about divine favor, moral behavior, and the proper relationship between human beings and the gods. Popular religion in Pompeii is more immediate and practical than the philosophical theology that appeals to educated elites. Working-class Romans seek divine assistance with concrete problems: illness, economic hardship, family troubles, and the various dangers that threaten urban life. The neighborhood shrines that dot Pompeii's streets serve as focal points for this popular religious practice. These small structures, often built into the corners of buildings or erected at street intersections, house images of protective deities and provide spaces where individuals can make offerings and petition for divine help. The lares, household gods who protect families and communities, receive particular attention from working-class worshippers who see them as accessible and responsive to human needs. As dawn approaches and the oil lamps flicker low in their holders, our journey through the living, breathing world of ancient Pompeii draws to a close. We have walked the cobbled streets with Marcus the baker, felt the Mediterranean sun on our faces in Lucius's garden, and heard the laughter of children echoing through the narrow alleys of the insulae. We have witnessed a city in full flower, its 20,000 souls pursuing their dreams and daily struggles beneath the shadow of Vesuvius, unaware that their vibrant world would soon be frozen in time for us to rediscover. in these quiet hours before sleep, remember that history is not merely dates and monuments, but the accumulated hopes, fears, and simple human moments of those who came before us. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the past. Until we meet again in the shadows of history, I wish you peaceful dreams and restful sleep.